All right, YouTubes. One thing that I feel like I've done very well with this channel is more recently than not, I've really tried to distinguish this between the clothing line and working out and everything that's built around the clothing line more than myself, more than like a personal brand. And as I see more people kind of split off and make the YouTube more of a personal branding, I think it's an awesome idea. Especially for the people that I know that are doing it. And I can't speak for everyone. I just know a few of you that are doing it, like Drew. I've talked to Drew a little bit about it, and I think it's a great move, especially with how he wants to position himself. But for me, how I'm looking to position this brand, I feel like the best thing for me to do is to keep the YouTube channel focused on the clothing line, kind of behind the scenes, focused on the things that revolve around the clothing line, the fitness aspect, the powerlifting aspect, the workout, that whole side of it, which is why I've positioned it where it's at. But one thing I've started to do, which is what the entirety of the rest of this episode will be, and if you don't want to watch a more podcasty thing, then this video probably isn't for you, and you should head over to iTunes, because that's kind of where I'm starting to build out my personal brand. And I haven't, up until this point, I made the conscious decision to not do personal branding because I didn't feel like I had a lot to offer. I felt like I had to bring something to the table. And now that this clothing line is kind of taken off the ground, now that I'm employed by it, now that we're turning more of a profit, and we're like we're like a real company now, kind of thing. I feel like I can start to branch off a minuscule amount and spend a little bit of effort on kind of talking about myself, I guess, kind of what I'm going through. And that's the whole thought process behind starting the podcast and getting it on iTunes. Was it's called Finding Myself, and that's exactly what I've got to do now. It's all about explaining how things are going through my mind and how I'm adapting and how I'm dealing with the pressures of running this business and a marriage, managing people, being 25 years old, trying to balance all that. And that's exactly why I made that podcast. So if you want to listen to that, head on over to iTunes. The rest of this episode will actually just be my thoughts on perspective, which is something that I've kind of ran into a little bit recently with some friends and just come up in conversation recently. So that's what I'm going to hit on today. So if you would like to listen to it and not watch the whole video, head on over to iTunes. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I will leave a link for it down in the description. And yeah, that's all I got. Really appreciate your attention, and I appreciate you making it 3 minutes into this, even if you don't listen to the whole rest of it. Welcome, episode 2. It's good to be back. Number 2. I think one of the hard things for me to do was to kind of figure out what topic I was going to talk about, and then I realized that the whole point of like a personal brand and the whole point of what I was trying to do with this podcast more than anything was to explain things that are happening in my life. So I'm not going to force myself to talk about something if I don't have a good gut feeling about it. So now that I've gone through a week, and it's funny how this kind of happened. Was it kind of came up in conversation with some friends, and then it happened again where someone else actually sent me a podcast that actually talked about this. And they kind of hit on it a little bit, but I want to give my 2 cents on the whole perspective aspect. So perspective. I think a ton of people, I don't want to say that because I fall into that exact same category. I think there's a lot of people that tend to take things out of context and don't really realize how fortunate we are, kind of thing. And I mean, we're all guilty of this. I've been there before. I've been there sitting in traffic and someone cuts you off and you literally just want to like murder the car and want the car to blow up and get out of your way, kind of thing. But I mean, I think there's a lot of people that default into that. And I don't think that I've gotten much better over the course of this business because I've realized that so many things just do not matter. I've realized that if a shipment comes in 2 days late, I'll get it figured out. Like, I'll make up the screen printing time. It's not that big a deal. Really, anything outside of something terrible happening to my wife or my family or anything like that, like, I mean, you can work around it. If you want to think about it like that, I mean, it's how you choose to look at a situation. And I think being in the position that I'm in has shown me that you have to operate that way, especially if you want to operate a business and operate at this level, is that you got to just let things go. You cannot dwell on things. You cannot make emotional decisions. You have got to just move as quickly as you can. And you're going to hurt some feelings along the way, and you're going to hit some roadblocks, but you're going to be all right. You're going to get it figured out. Because on the flip side of that, there are other people who would die to be in this position, who would die to be self-employed, who would absolutely love to have something going their way right now. There's businesses where I would love to be in the position of, and there's two mindsets you can kind of go about looking at this that I've found myself in at the beginning of this. I felt myself very in the mindset of looking up to saying, oh, well, this guy's putting out YouTube videos and he's doing really well. I want to be him. I want to have what he has. I want to do this. Even if they weren't even like in the same market as me. Like I in the very beginning, I would say I was like that with Gary Vaynerchuk. There was a couple other people that I don't really remember now. They were all kind of in the fitness industry, but I distinctly remember saying that to myself as, wow, I want to have what they have. And then I realized that I don't really want that. And then I realized that what I'm doing is awesome. Like, Gary does not have a hand-printed clothing line like I do. Gary does not have anything that I have. I mean, he's in it. It's not even fair to compare myself to him. I mean, we're completely, there's like 30 years between us. Like, there is a huge difference. And it's not even fair to compare myself, but that's what I was doing. And that perspective is super damaging to not only how you feel about yourself, but how you go about your decisions. If you start making your decisions off of materialistic things that will get you to buying a car, to having another employee, to having XYZ, you start making decisions for the wrong reasons. And one thing that I've prided myself on is when it comes down to it, I think that I do very well with picking apart. Yes, we could spend money on this, but the better bet would be to take a hit and move this direction. I feel like I can navigate that space very well. Let's see, for instance, in the very beginning, looking back at it, I probably would have changed how I did it, but every single item that somebody told me they wanted, I spent the extra money to make. So what I wound up with was a ton of extra inventory, but I knew what I wanted long term. I knew long term I wanted to have the people that bought from the very first release. I knew that I needed to have their support long term, which is why I went about and I made like 6 different designs for the first release, and I did like 12 different colors, which is still our biggest release to date. And I still have the most clothes left over to date from any release from that one. But it's cool because even then I knew how I wanted to position myself. I knew that I wanted to show that I cared about people, and I really did, and that I'm not really, yes, you have to make monetary decisions to some extent, but my entire business model does not revolve around me making decisions on what's going to move us, what's going to bring us the most money. I will never sacrifice my morals for any business decision. So getting back to this perspective thing I think perspective is very easy to lose when things are not going your way, or when things around you don't seem to be playing into your favor. I think that perspective is super easy to lose. And I also think that the second that things start going right again, it's almost like the human brain just snaps and forgets about everything that just happened, and now you only focus on the good. And I'm trying to think of how I can give some examples without like giving away names and like personal conversations we had. But we were like we were at a diner. I'm just gonna go for it. We were at a restaurant and we ordered food, and one of the waitress accidentally bumped into the tray and dumped over my food and one other guy's food, and it was very clear to see the split difference between how the two of us reacted. It was the absolute end of the world for somebody else. This was the worst thing that could ever happen. It was just their luck, and the day could not have gotten any worse. But it's food. Like, you are paying for food. Let's put that in perspective for 3 seconds. You have the ability to drive to a restaurant. You have the ability to use money to buy food to put into your body. Just let that sink in for a minute. Do you realize how many people in third world countries do not have a car, do not have money, have no idea where they're going to get food, and you are complaining that some food fell on the floor and this is the worst day of your life and that I just don't get it? Like, it happened to me too. Like, my food's sitting on the ground over there. You could have some empathy for the poor guy who dumped it, which is exactly what I did. You can help him pick it up, or you can sit there and sit on your high and mighty horse of why you are so much better and you deserve everything. And that's why I think that's kind of where this all stems from, is I want to hit off that I don't think people realize that even the fact that you are watching or listening to this podcast, even the fact that you have some headphones in or you're sitting at a computer, any of that is there are people that would do anything to have that issue. There are people that do not have drinkable water, that have to walk miles. There are people that have had so much worse upbringings. There are people that don't know their mom. There are people that don't know their dad. There are people that have been abused. There are people that come from completely broken houses. And here you are complaining that your podcast or your video isn't loading fast enough. You know, and I think it's in those times that you have to realize, you've got to really understand that the fact that you have internet puts you in such a low percentage of the people of the world. That may not be true, actually. I just kind of made that part up. But the point I'm trying to make is the fact that you can even listen to the internet, that you can use the internet, that you have the ability to move yourself forward in this world through this crazy thing called the internet is something that other people do not have. People do not realize that it's here and you are living through it. Like, you didn't have to live through the Great Depression. You didn't have to live through the bubonic plague. You didn't have to live through the dinosaurs. Like, I don't know. Like, you're sitting here watching and listening to a podcast, and you may or may not be running a business, and things may or may not be going 100% the way you anticipated them to be going in your life, but that doesn't mean your life's done. That doesn't mean that it's the worst day ever, or that you can't make today a good day. Yeah, you're going to have roadblocks, and I get it. Some people it's going to be hard. There's definitely days that it's hard. It's hard for me to get out of bed some days. It's hard. And even the fact that I'm doing exactly what I want to do right now, that I'm operating and managing this clothing line, I've got a house, I've got a dog, I've got a wife, like, I've got a lot of things going for me, and that's what I have to keep reminding myself. And honestly, the stuff that gets me bent out of shape is not quite. I'm trying to think of the last instance where I got kind of bent out of shape. It's usually very petty things that I know in my soul and I know in my heart aren't that big a deal, but I'm making them a big deal. And those are the times when I catch myself doing it, because I have incredible self-awareness and I think that I can catch myself doing that. When I do recognize that I am doing that, that's when it doesn't matter if we're having a conversation or not, I will literally shut everything down and just take a few minutes to go on a walk and just collect my thoughts and realize that, I'm operating a clothing line. I'm self-employed. I have a house over my head. I have a family that still cares for me. I've got a mom and a dad and a brother that are still here. There's just so much I've been blessed with in this life. And that's how I get over it. That's how I realize that, well, you know what? Just because Susie on the internet said that my content's garbage, you know what? It's okay. It's not that big a deal. Life will go on. Just because someone said that my mohawk is stupid, which I don't think it is, it's awesome. Just because someone said that doesn't mean my day is over. Like, I don't know. I think perspective is a huge thing, and once you contextualize it and realize that you are so fortunate that you do not have the bubonic plague, that you know where your next meal is coming from, that you've got water probably an arm's reach away from you. Once you put that and realize, and I'm not just saying like in the moment motivational, like, yeah, I am. No, I mean like when when are hardcore going downhill. When you put that in the moment, those things that are hardcore going downhill just don't seem to add up anymore. They really don't. Now, there are times, and I mean, if something were to happen to my wife or my dog or any of my family, I feel like that's really bad that I just put my dog above my family, but I should probably rearrange those. So it should probably go wife, family, dog. If anything happens to any one of those three things, I don't know what I would do. I would try. I think I would say optimistic because that's in my nature, but I think it would be very easy, and I get it. This goes back to there's times and there's situations and there's circumstances where it is very easy to fall into that hole of woe is me kind of thing. And I think it'd be very easy for me to fall into that. But honestly, I can't answer that, how I would react to that. I would like to hope that I would try to stay optimistic and that I would try to realize that everything that's happened is there for a reason, and it's all part of a plan, and that plan doesn't need my approval to happen, and it doesn't even need my awareness to happen. But it is hard, and I get it. So there's my little 2 cents on perspective.